Hello, my name's Ella. My pronouns are she, her. I'm filming this video from the Wathaurong country, which is unceded territory. And for any international viewers who might stumble across this video, that's located in Geelong, Victoria, Australia. And this is my Flosstube channel, where I will be primarily sharing about my passion for cross-stitching and other crafts that I enjoy doing as well. So the name of this channel is The Spectrum Stitcher. And as I share a little bit more about me, I'll explain a little bit more about the name behind the channel as well. But a bit about me first. So I am a PhD student and mother of two. I'm studying my PhD in law, specifically climate change law, and my thesis relates to, or is about, the question whether following the adoption of the Paris Agreement, which hopefully all of you know, but it's the agreement where the world signed on to trying to avoid catastrophic climate change by limiting global average temperature increase to less than 1.5 degrees. So my research question is whether, following the adoption of the Paris Agreement, there have been legal pathways created to halt coal extraction and consumption in Australia. So I'm sure I'll share with you from time to time things I've been discovering in my research, but that's just a little flavour of what I primarily do with my time, alongside being a mother to my two wonderful children. And as aforementioned, I'm also a passionate cross-stitcher, and I suppose I'd like to share with you how that came about. I think part of the story is quite a common one in the Flosstube community. The pandemic hit in 2020, and with lots of hours at home, I looked for ways that I enjoyed to pass some of that time alongside helping my children with remote learning, which took up most of my time. But when I had some quiet hours, particularly in the evening, I would look for positive ways to spend my time, and I had a small cross-stitch bookmark kit of Flanders poppies, that was the image, in my drawer, because I do tend to go down to Spotlight, which for any international viewers, which I would be very surprised if I have any of them, especially with my first video, but that's like a Australian equivalent of Michael's or Joanne's, which I've learned from watching all of the fantastic American Flosstubers that I love to watch. But yeah, I went to my local Spotlight. I often just pick up things that look interesting, even if I haven't done that craft before. Cross-stitch was one of them, and well before the pandemic hit, I'd picked up a bookmark cross-stitch kit, and I'd finished knitting a massive blanket for my son, and I didn't want to start a new knitting project that day, and so I thought that cross-stitch bookmark looked nice and small and contained, and a good way to try something new, and I became hooked. When I was doing that bookmark, I looked up on YouTube for some tutorials about some basic cross-stitching skills, and that's how I stumbled across Flosstube. And Flosstube has become for me, watching Flosstube has become for me like my fortnightly craft circle for the people that post fortnightly that I like to view. Something that something that I couldn't do in person because of the pandemic, but also I've discovered that I'm someone that does like, I am quite introverted and like to be at home quite a lot. Anyway, Flosstube has just become something that I enjoy doing to relax every day, and I enjoy stitching and watching, as I'm sure it is for many of you. and it's become a really huge part of my life, and it's a way that I feel connected to other people who share my passion. So that's how I started cross-stitching. But I discovered something a lot deeper about what my cross-stitching means to me this year, 2021. And that is that I underwent a diagnostic process, an assessment for autism, and I've been diagnosed with autism. So this channel will also be a place where I share what I'm learning about myself through that lens of the autism diagnosis. And I should say that anything that I say about autism is from the perspective of my experience as an autistic person. There's a whole neurodiverse spectrum, and everyone's experience on that is different. And I'm also very new to understanding about the autism spectrum and neurodiversity in general, and also what that means for me. So anything I say about that is very much from that perspective of it being new information to me, something that I'm learning about. But I am obviously qualified to talk about my experience as an autistic person. So I will be sharing about that. But one thing I've discovered about autism is that for many of us we have, and I certainly have, special interests. And if you're not on the spectrum or you haven't heard about this before, you might think, well, everyone has a special interest, aren't they just called, isn't that just another way of saying hobbies? And yeah, it is a way of saying hobby, but for me and my experience of having this special interest in cross-stitching is that it is something that preoccupies my brain when I'm not working, which either through study or looking after my kids. I'm thinking about cross-stitch. When I'm thinking about cross-stitch, I'm getting such intense enjoyment out of that. Holding threads in my hands and looking at the colours, it makes my heart feel huge in my chest, and and looking at the colours is like I fizz with excitement in drinking in those colours with my eyes. The process of stitching for me is something that I find really soothing and ordered, because I find repetitive processes like that to be really calming and a way to make sense of the world that most of the time can be quite a confronting and scary place because of the lack of order and consistency. And cross-stitch gives me that order and consistency. Cross-stitching is so important to me, and I'm learning that part of the reason it is so important to me is because it is one of my special interests, and I use that term special interest, as I've just explained, in the sense that it is used in the neurodiverse and autistic community. So I thought that I'd like to start a Flosstube to share what I'm learning about what cross-stitch means to me as an autistic person, and also just to share the joy of cross-stitch. Another impetus for me starting a Flosstube, it is something, and I'm sure this is similar for a lot of people who've done Flosstubes, it's something you think about, or at least I've thought about for a long time before I've started filming. But what has prompted me to start this very day, which by the way is the 20th of December 2021, is that one of my favourite Flosstubers, Neat and Not by the Sea, Catherine and Victoria, who are in Port Chalmers, New Zealand, I had found a magazine clipping that I wanted to share with them. For those of you who have not watched Neat and Not by the Sea, I highly encourage you to. They're just the most delightful people, and have some fantastic crafting to share with you. So Catherine is very organic with the way that she crafts and isn't about imposing strict rules on herself in the way that she does that. And it's something that I really admire, because I find it very difficult to not do things exactly as written. And I'm inspired to be a little bit more relaxed about the way that I engage with my cross stitch. So Catherine inspires me to do that. But Victoria is a contrast to Catherine in that regard. And she, and I lean this way as well, likes to follow the floss colours called for, the pattern as called for, and crosses all of her stitches in a consistent way. So the top leg of the X that you're making is always in the same direction. And that is something that I had previously read was a recommended thing to do with cross stitch to make your work look as neat and tidy and I suppose professional, if that's the right word to use, as possible. But then I was cleaning up my house because I had a routine house inspection coming up, and I found a stack of magazines that my grandmother had given me, needlework magazines from the 1990s. And one of the pieces of advice in that magazine was that if you a professional tip or a recommended tip for adding texture to your work was to vary the direction of the way that you cross your X's, and so do that in an inconsistent way. To give texture and life and body to your work. And I thought, well, now that that's written down, maybe it's a rule that people like Victoria and I can follow. Anyway, Catherine, who is the one that's more organic and doesn't cross her X's in a consistent way, is a bit more active on Instagram, and I decided to take a photo of that part of advice from the magazine and send it to her. And I suggested that maybe because it was a written down thing now and an instruction given in a magazine, that maybe people like Victoria and I could follow it and give it a go and feel empowered to not have to cross all of our X's consistently. Anyway, that started a conversation between Catherine and I. It took me a lot to actually reach out, because I'm someone that had always watched Flosstube but not really commented or interacted. And Catherine was so generous in the way that she interacted with me, so warm. And then, to my absolute joy, their next Flosstube, following that discussion I had via Instagram with Catherine, Catherine and Victoria mentioned my comment, and they mentioned it in such a way that showed to me that they really enjoyed receiving that interaction from me, which just made me feel so glad. And I recorded a bit of the part of their Flosstube in which they'd mentioned me on my phone and texted it to my partner and my mother, because I was just so excited to be mentioned in their Flosstube. And then later on, I was watching back that clip that I'd taken, and I heard this rippling, giggling sound, and I was like, what's that noise that's in this clip that I've taken? That wasn't in the original Flosstube. And then I realised that giggling was me giggling as with joy and delight when I was filming that video clip, taking that clip of the Flosstube in a very non-technological way, because it was playing on my laptop and I was taking a video of that on my phone. But anyway, the point being is that I realised that that interaction had given me just this childlike joy, and I'm someone who sees a psychologist regularly, and she is always encouraging me to tap into my curiosity, tap into things that give me a sense of fun and joy. And through that experience of hearing me giggle in a way I'd not really been aware I even could, made me realise, well, I think now's the time to film a Flosstube, because I got that much joy out of being mentioned on someone else's Flosstube that I think I would enjoy filming a Flosstube of my own. And then maybe my Flosstube might bring similar joy in a small way to a viewer. So that's why I want to film a Flosstube, and why I've finally decided to do that today. Another small practical reason is it's Christmas time, and I have a little bit of leave from my PhD, and I thought, well, now's a really relaxed time to do that. So that's a really long story about why I love cross stitch, and why I've decided to film a Flosstube, and a little bit of information about me. I'm sure I will share more of those things in future videos. Another thing I wanted to mention is that, being from Australia, I'm from the Southern Hemisphere, and predominantly the Flosstubes that I've come across have been from the Northern Hemisphere. So I absolutely love watching my fellow Flosstube friends from America, North America, Canada, and the UK predominantly. But then I have come across a few Australian and New Zealand Flosstubers, and I just want to join part of that, and I want to help grow that. So yeah, I just thought I'd give a shout out to some Southern Hemisphere Flosstubers who I've come across. And yeah, if anyone's come across this video and would like to let me know of Southern Hemisphere Flosstubers that I am unaware of, or that you've come across that you'd like to share with me, please put a comment below, or you can send me an email. My email that I've created for this channel is spectrumstitcher@gmail.com. That will be in the description below as well. So I really like Nicky Noodles, who is in New South Wales. Her Flosstube is fantastic. She, I would say, is a very advanced cross stitcher. I probably should have mentioned, you know, and I suppose it was implied from the fact that I started cross stitch in 2020. I am still what I would say is a novice. I exclusively stitch on Ada. I'm going to give stitching on linen a go in 2022. That's one of my goals, which I'll talk a bit more about later. But I would say that Nicky is someone who I really look up to, Nicky Noodles. She stitches on linen on really high counts, so making tiny little X's that are so neat and perfect. She stitches a lot of samplers and things like that, and I don't have a lot of or any experience with samplers. So I get a lot of joy out of watching her Flosstube, and she's also just very lovely to listen to. I have a real affinity with voices. When I hear a really nice calming voice, I've noticed that voices that resonate with me are the Flosstubes that I like to watch again and again. And Nicky is definitely one of those. Another Australian Flosstuber I've come across, and probably the one that lives closest to me that I've come across, is Morgan at Honeybee Stitcher, who I believe is in Melbourne. So Morgan, if you ever come across this, hi. Yeah, I think it'd be great to learn of other local people and see if we can meet up somehow. But yeah, I love what Morgan stitches, and yeah, I really enjoy watching her videos and hearing about her share about things that she loves. For example, the intersection between how much she loves the show The Gilmore Girls and how she's been stitching Gilmore Girls patterns. Yeah, she's a fun person to watch. A fantastic other Australian Flosstube I've come across, which is attached to a fantastic Australian business, is Fox and Rabbit Flosstube, and they've got a fantastic cross-stitch design company, so they make patterns, and they also have fabric that seems to be absolutely world-renowned, both of them, the patterns and the fabric. I see a lot of the people in the Northern Hemisphere who are Flosstubers, stitching Brendan and Karen's from Fox and Rabbit's designs as well as on their fabric. And then they generously make available a free stitch along every year. And yeah, that seems to have a huge following, and something that I'd definitely like to join in on going. And I love watching and hearing about their fantastic fur babies, their dogs, and I think that I'll talk a bit more about them soon because that's related to my haul, but yeah, I love watching them. And then I've already mentioned Victoria and Catherine from Neat and Not by the Sea over in New Zealand. They're absolutely one of my all-time favourite Flosstubers, and yeah, as I said, a huge part of the inspiration behind me giving this a go. So if anyone comes across any other Flosstubers from Australia, New Zealand, Southern Hemisphere in general that I've not come across, please let me know. I'd be really interested to follow and to learn about people a little bit more local to me. So I've been talking for quite a while, and I should probably show you some actual stitching. I should say that I have no idea how big my work in progress or WIP count is. I was feeling a bit overwhelmed by the idea of getting out a huge bundle of my works in progress and doing a WIP parade to show you all of the things that I've got that are not finished. So I thought I might leave that for a future time if there's interest or if I feel inclined. But I did think that I would show you in each video that I do some things that I finished previously. I will run out of those fairly quickly, but for the first little while I'll enjoy showing you those. And because it's very close to Christmas, I thought I would show you today something that I have fully finished, which means taken the completed stitching and made it into an object, either framed or into an ornament or something like that. I thought I'd show you a Christmas decoration, a Christmas ornament, which I've fully finished. So here we go. This is of a beautiful Sturt desert pea. And in true rookie fashion, I have realised that this beautiful ornament is, I haven't written down the name of the cross-stitch designer and the pattern for this one, but what I will do is I will put those details in the description box below under this video. But it was a set of patterns that I got from Etsy. In each pattern there were 3 native floral Christmas ornament designs, and there are 3 sets of 3, or maybe 4 sets of 3. I will double check those details. I'll put all of those details below. I think you're going to have to bear with me as I make lots of rookie mistakes, this being my first video, but I'm sure I'll continue to make them for quite a while. And this is very reminiscent for me of me. I did some lecturing at my local university this year. It was the first time I was teaching, and I was all done via Zoom because of the pandemic. And yeah, I sort of asked for forgiveness in the first few live Zoom teachings for mistakes that I made, but I think I was still definitely making them by week 11 or 12 at the end of the semester. So we'll see how long that lasts with this, but yeah, one thing I really like about Flosstube is, and of course there are some people who are really slick and videos are just very well edited and very technical, but there are also a lot of stitchers who are less technical and the focus is the love of stitching. So I've found this to be something that seems accessible for me to do with my own lack of technical prowess and propensity to make many mistakes. So anyway, I'm going to veer away from the idea of editing my videos for a while and just focus on putting videos out, and then hopefully build up my skills over time. But yes, I'm very proud of this stitch. I'll hold it nice and close. Hopefully it will focus in a way that is pleasing for you to view. It has some very small amounts of backstitch in the middle of the P. Excuse me. It's stitched in all the called for DMC, 2 strands, on 18 count Rustico Ada by Zweigart. And I finished it in this very small hoop. I'm sorry, I don't know what the measurements are. But yes, I do recall that in the pattern instructions it did say if you stitched it on 18 count Ada, you'd need a hoop of a specific size, and that was definitely true. That's how it worked out perfectly. And then I just backed it with some green felt, which I whip stitched around, and just used some thread to make a hanger. And it's been on my Christmas tree, and I've been enjoying it very much. And it was really nice because I finished it, I think, in about February 2021, so quite a few months ago now. Excuse my coughing. And then I put it away, and then, so I hadn't displayed it before, and then to put it on my tree was like, you know, unwrapping a present to myself. So that's a previous fully finished object that I thought I'd share with you today, and I look forward to sharing other things that I've finished with you in future videos. I also wanted to show you some stitching that I've finished recently that I haven't yet fully finished. Of course, I had grand plans to fully finish it before I film this video, but there's no perfect time to film a video, and I didn't want to make it be the thing that held me up. So I stitched 2 small Christmas patterns by Barbara Anna, who I think for many of us is a favourite designer in the cross stitch community. I just love her designs, as I'm sure will become evident today and in future videos. But yeah, so this one is called Santa's Flight. And I'm sure I'll get better at holding these up in a pleasing way too. Of course, I haven't ironed it. This is Santa's Flight by Barbara Anna. It's stitched on 14 count Ada from Zweigart in the colour, I think it's Dirty. It might just be called Dirty Ada, or it might be called Dirty Linen, but I think it's just called Dirty. It's certainly an Ada fabric. And all the called for DMC, 2 strands. And what really attracted me to this pattern are that the colours are so different for a Christmas pattern. One thing that my family, if they stumble across this, will certainly be able to agree with and attest to is that I have for most of my life been quite a Grinch. I've found Christmas to be a very confronting and stressful time from a very young age. And of course, with my recent autism diagnosis, that has become more understandable to me, or less of a mystery to me. I was quite comforted to find that quite a lot of neurodiverse people find Christmas to be a really overwhelming and stressful time due to a variety of reasons, but certainly for me, now that I'm more aware of it, there's lots of sensory overload with flashing lights, lots of colours. There's also lots of sort of social pressure, extra social events to go to, which I find really depleting and tiring. I'm someone who was going to multiple family events because I was part of blended families from a very young age. And then there's all the extra social conventions of Christmas. So I find, opening presents in front of people to be really stressful because I worry about arranging my face into the appropriate reaction when you open a gift. Sometimes my initial reaction, if I wasn't sort of manufacturing it, would be to not have an outward visible reaction to something, and to take some time to process how I feel about it, and most likely be, and you know, overjoyed with the present, but it takes me a while to figure that out, and that pressure to have the appropriate excitement when you open a present is something that for me is a bit of a pressure situation. So anyway, there are a few of the things that stress me out about Christmas now. So that means that a lot of my life I've been a bit of a Grinch of not being into Christmas at all. And yeah, cross-stitching has provided me a pathway to engage with Christmas in a way that I enjoy. Having kids has also been something that has helped me to reset some of my, I almost want to call it trauma or triggering things about Christmas in the past, and seeing Christmas through their eyes has been very healing for me, and creating some of our own Christmas traditions. But I would say that, I'm feeling a bit of stress coming up to Christmas this year. But a lot of that has been reduced by my love of cross-stitching. And yeah, so one of the things that attracted me to this pattern was that it's a very muted palette, a very beautiful palette, and not a traditional Christmas palette. And we've got Santa here riding not a traditional Christmas steed or animal. And I suppose I don't think about Christmas. I'm not a traditional Christmas participant. And so it just felt like the right pattern for me, as well as just being absolutely whimsical and visually pleasing. It seemed to hold some significance for me. So I loved stitching that. And then Barbara Anna has other sort of companion patterns with this. So I had to immediately stitch those. And so this is Christmas Hare, Hare, by Barbara Anna Designs, which I finished very recently. Also stitched on 14 count Dirty Ada, so the same piece. And the called for DMC, which is the same colours called for in Santa's Flight, the one I just showed you. It's a very, very pleasing and relaxing stitch. It's got a small amount of back stitch here in the reins around the hair. And I absolutely loved it. So my plan for these is to finish these into embroidery hoops, and to display these with my Christmas decorations. And I have bought, and I suppose I can show you this now because it relates to this. It is part of haul, but we can be a bit relaxed about this, so I'm going to try to be. Excuse the rustling noise. I know some people love that. I know others don't. I'm not a huge fan, so I'll try to minimize it. But I bought some recycled sari silk from Mojo Stitches on Etsy, and she's also a fabulous cross-stitch designer. And the idea is that I will wrap this around the wooden frame of the embroidery hoop, and I think it will go really well with the palette of the cross-stitch. It's slightly more sort of yellowy, but I think it's complementary. This light is making it look a bit more acidy green, but it's not. It's a very sort of nice gold colour that does actually go quite well with the DMC. I'm hoping that when I put the cross stitch up over my face like that, you can still hear me. I suppose I'm going to find out when I replay this video to myself. But anyway, that's my plan for finishing those. And of course I've been meaning to do that, as I said, for a while, finish them into the hoops, but that's not happened yet. And I'm trying to put as little pressure on myself and really be strict with myself around this Christmas holiday seasons about what actually I have to do versus what it would be nice to do, because I think I have a propensity to think that everything that I think of doing is a mandatory thing, where actually that's just me putting pressure on myself. So yes, that is recently finished stitching. Now if I keep looking down, it's because even though I've been talking for 34 minutes, and you'd probably think I haven't written myself a bit of a plan for this video because I've been waffling quite a bit. I do have a plan, and if I'm looking down, that's because I'm ticking some things off my list, which gives me great pleasure to do. I love ticking things off lists. Okay, so work in progress. I've been primarily stitching on one thing recently, and it is the 2021 Christmas stitch along from one of my favourite designers, Satsuma Street. And all 4 parts have been released now. I think we started it sort of early November maybe. I'm a bit vague on when it first started coming out, but you can buy it as one single pattern on Satsuma Street's shop on Etsy now. So I don't think I'll be spoiling this by showing it to anyone. I don't actually have the full pattern to show you. Oh, actually I might. I might do the old very technological trick of holding up my my laptop to my iPhone, which I'm filming on, which I'm sure you like. So anyway, just bear with me. I'm going to try and not show you any of the pattern because I am vaguely aware of the cardinal rules of cross stitching. So I don't know if that's going to work. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. This is the Noel sampler by Satsuma Street. It was released in 4 parts over some weeks recently, and yeah, I did have an intention of keeping up with it, but it was my first time I was participating in a stitch along, so I'm not surprised that I didn't manage to keep up with it. And I do go with the what do people call it, sweewee, stitch what you want when you want sort of ideology. So yeah, I've been trying not to burn myself out on this and just stitch it when I feel like it. Having said that, it's been an absolute joy. One of my favourite things to do with this one is just the absolute riot of colour. So here are the very messy, bit dishevelled, called for DMC colours. So just absolutely, you know, a rainbow of Christmas. So once again, not necessarily a traditional palette. Although all of the borders, as you're about to see, are in this gorgeous red, which is number 321. So it does definitely have a Christmassy vibe. And as you saw from the pattern before, all of the motifs are very Christmassy. I should say that this thread keep is from number 12 Stitch Co. on Etsy. And they actually sent it along with some floss drops. So I can show you their business details here. Hopefully that comes up in a way that you can read. I will put it in the description below. So number 12 Stitch Co. at Etsy. And their Instagram is handmade at number 12. A fantastic Australian business who I love to support. Anyway, without further ado, I'll show you my progress. So I'm stitching mine on 14 count Rustico Ada, which I think, you know, certainly when I started stitching was my favourite fabric. I think of all the Adas I stitch on, it probably still is. As I've mentioned before, I do plan to stitch on some linen next year. But here's where I'm at. So I got great pleasure out of stitching the borders up until recently when I found out I had a mistake, which I'll show you shortly. But yeah, just stitching the borders was very meditative. I didn't have to look at the pattern and I just enjoyed that. So even though the sampler was released in blocks of 4, I actually went ahead and stitched the whole border first, and then the interior borders, these colourful bits inside the main red, second. And then I've just been stitching whichever motif calls to me. And as you can see, I've really enjoyed stitching the lettering, the N, the O, the E, and the L, the Noel. And now I've got the rest of the blocks to fill in. Now, as I said, there have been some what I call unintentional or accidental personalizations when I've been stitching this. The N is not exactly as charted. There's a bit of fudging going on in there. But the main problem that I realised very recently, and I was very sad, so I get intense enjoyment out of my cross stitching, but when I realise I've made a mistake, I have to have a bit of a cry about it, and a call to, you know, anyone who will listen to me about how upset I am about it. But you will see there that I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see, but I've dropped down this border by 1 square, and so there's 1 too many lines lengthways in this box. The L is still in the correct space, but that means that this box down here is 1 too short, and I've carried through that mistake from the L across into the box with the red and the pink next to it. So the yellow, the pale blue and the pink box have all got slightly wrong amounts. But I think what I will do is perform a bit of surgery. I actually had a consult with my partner about this because we were thinking about how technically to do it with pulling out as little stitching as possible. At first I thought I could leave it, but I think I've invested so much time in this one, and I think I'll get a lot of pleasure out of looking at it and not just being reminded of my mistake. You know, the fudging in the end I don't think is obvious, but with that border I think now that I've seen it I can't unsee it. So I'm planning on taking out the second line, the bottommost line of red underneath that L. The top line's in the correct place, and then putting in a line of stitching above the existing top line means that I will have to take out some of this interior yellow and blue and fix the pink in here. But I think it's doable. But I think what I'm planning to do, just so that I don't lose motivation with this and I don't put it away and forget that and just pretend it never existed, because I am really, really keen to have this up on my mantelpiece for next Christmas, 2022, is I will just enjoy stitching the motifs that I haven't stitched yet. Obviously not in the 3 boxes that are the wrong size, but all the ones up on the top row and down this side here, I'm going to put in before I then tackle that frogging, which if any non-cross stitchers have come across this video, frogging is when you rip it out. If there is a explanation behind frogging that is different than that, I'd be really interested to know. I think it's a term that I've also heard in knitting circles as well. Anyway, that was my work in progress of the Noel sampler by Satsuma Street. Okay, so I thought I would also like to share with you something that another way that I've made Christmas joyful for me. And I know it might sound a little bit selfish, but I've found that, me not being into Christmas also has flow-on effects for those around me. And I'm particularly concerned to limit those flow-on effects for my children. I want my children to be able to engage in Christmas in a way that they choose, and not be hampered or hindered by any of my Grinchiness. So not only do I deserve to have some fun and to treat myself and to enjoy my hobby, I also think that me finding ways to make Christmas fun has having flow-on effects for people around me. But one of the things I did, so this year I've done advent calendars for my 2 children as well as for my partner. For my partner, I folded 24 origami ornaments, and that was supposed to be and is a huge love declaration because it was something that he suggested we do on a date. It's just a fun activity when we first started dating, and I said, oh, well, you're very brave, because I get very frustrated by origami and trying things new that I'm not existingly good at, and having the exposing experience of doing that in front of someone rather than just by myself and tearing out my own hair by myself and getting upset with myself. But anyway, there's been some certainly very comical times in which my ability to calm myself has been tested, and his patience has certainly been proven when we've been trying out origami together. And it's also something that I've now come to really enjoy to do with him. But I thought it would mean a lot to him if I showed him how much effort at something I'm not naturally good at, and something that I have grown in patience through doing, that he introduced me to, if I did an advent calendar in that theme. So he's had an advent, a daily origami, and will continue to do so up until the 24th of December. My children are very into Lego, and so they've had a combined 24 days of a Lego minifigure each day, and so they'll end up with 12 each, and they've been getting absolute delight out of doing that. But for me, the cross-stitch obsessed person, I decided to do a floss-themed advent calendar, and I got that idea from Mommalovesyougb, one of my favourite Flosstubers, who's in Wales, but yeah, one of my favourite Flosstubers in general. I saw that she did that in 2020, and I think she's done it again in 2021. And I think it's become more formal for her in 2021 is because she's bought one that's already been curated. But I think originally she just reached out to her local needlework store, LNS, and said, would you put together 24 flosses and, you know, give me an invoice with the amount but not the names of them, and put them in a bag so I can't see. Either that or just had the order shipped to her, and then she had her partner put them into bags so that she didn't see them. And then she had the joy of opening one a day for 24 days. And so I thought, I couldn't find any local to Australia Advent boxes for cross stitching, so I contacted A Stitch in Time Hobart, who, you know, Tasmania and Victoria, they're not exactly close, but they're close in the context of the globe, I suppose. So I think of A Stitch in Time Hobart as a local needlework store for me. Not that I've visited in person, but I really enjoy their service and their website. And I contacted Carolyn from there and said, look, here's my budget. And I'd like, 24 different flosses of a variety of colours and fibres. For example, I've never tried stitching with silk. You know, could you give me some things to try in that? So she came back with an amount that was well within my budget. And I'm sure if I said it was less, she could have accommodated that too if my budget was less. And then I had them shipped to my mum. And I just told my mum, I'll go and buy some, brown paper bags. Certainly here, I'm not sure if it's a worldwide thing, probably is. But we used to get lunch orders from the school canteen in these. We'd provide the brown paper bag with our order written on the front and the money inside, and then your lunch would come in the brown paper bag. So I said, Mum, just buy some brown paper lunch bags, number them 1 to 24. And put the floss in it, and then I'll have the joy of opening them one a day for 24 days. But my mum is a go hard or go home type of person. I mean that in the most wonderful way. She is really generous and definitely is always on board with whatever fun idea or scheme I've come up with. And so when Mum rocked up at my house with my advent calendar, this is what she rocked up with. So I believe she bought this on Etsy. I will see if I can get from her the name of the seller that she got it from. But it is absolutely beautiful. It's made from wood. It's got these beautiful sort of cut out images and some glittery images painted on the days, on the drawers, numbered 1 to 24. And also, because Mum's really into bling, we'll see if I can make this work. It lights up. So now I have this beautiful advent calendar to use year after year, provided as a lovely gift from my mum. So thank you, Mum. And I thought I'd show you the days that I've opened to date, so day 1 to 20. So I hope you'll enjoy with me as I share with you. I have been posting them on Instagram daily. So my Instagram handle is Ella Rose Vines, ELLAROSEV for Victor, INES, whereas my grandmother would have said Vines with a smile. But I will put that in the description below. But I'd love it if you'd follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is basically for my stitching and also for my love of gardening. So come and follow me over there. I will also show you days 1 to 24. So on day 1, we started off with a bang with this beautiful floss from Cottage Garden Threads. I had a mental blank for a moment. That will happen from time to time. So they're an Australian mother and daughter small business. So I was absolutely delighted, and I love supporting local business. So I was absolutely delighted that Carolyn had thought to put this in as my first one. So it's cotton, 10 meters, and it's this beautiful variegated blue and teal, so navy blue and teal color, called Lyrebird Walk. So I absolutely can't wait to use that. I'm going to have so much fun choosing what designs I will use these in. I've never stitched a monochromatic design before, so I think this would be fantastic to find a monochromatic design to stitch this with. But watch this space. I'll definitely show you what I do decide to do with it later. Day number 2. Now, I must say, absolutely no shade to my mother, but I have noticed that there tends to be, you know, 3 days in a row of one brand and then 3 days in a row of the next brand. So Mum didn't think to mix them up. But that's sort of been nice too. I mean, there's been a bit of a pattern. You know, I don't like too much of a surprise. So anyway, day number 2 was another cottage garden threads. This one's called Mill Rose. It's a beautiful pink colour. I think, you know, I know people on Flosstube spend a lot of time saying, is the camera showing it true to colour? I just don't think I'm that skilled to give you that advice yet. Look, it seems to be, the lighting seems to be doing us some favours. I think the phone's maybe a bit having focus issues. This seems to be what people do. I apologise. I do promise to get better over time with filming these in a way that's pleasant for you. And of course, I love feedback. So if anyone felt like they would wanted to take the time to give me feedback on how to improve, I would love to hear that. Anyway, I loved that colour. So that was day number 2. Then day number 3, once again, same brand, Cottage Garden Threads, but who wouldn't want more Cottage Garden Threads? And this is called Butterfly, and I think if it wasn't called Butterfly, you know, it gives me very Cirque du Soleil, and forgive my terrible French, but very circus vibes. And it's just, you know, got that beautiful fuchsia and that bright orange. I imagine this is a colour that Catherine at Neat and Knot would really love. She seems, she's got Peruvian heritage, and she really, and the way she describes it is that being attracted to bright colours is very much a celebration of her culture. So I imagine she'd love this floss. But yes, I can't wait to decide what I will stitch with that. Then I got behind for a few days, and so I did I think I spent some time with my partner at his place and wasn't home, so I did days 4 to 6 all in one day, and it was like, you know, felt like Christmas Day already because there were so many gifts to me. And there were some threads from A Week's Dye Works, which I will just arrange. So there was Moon Glow, which is this very, it is showing a bit lighter in the camera than it is for me, but it goes from like a very light cream to a beautiful lemon yellow. There's some nice variegation in it. Then there was taupe, or taupe, I think the Americans would say. And that's showing fairly true, slightly variegated. And then Strawberry Fields, which goes from like a fuchsia to a sort of medium pink, which I really liked. Then day 7 was a classic Colourworks stranded cotton called Autumn Spice, which is a beautiful, rich colour. I've got to get used to where to look. Where's the lens? I apologise if I'm never giving you eye contact, but to be honest, I'm the type of autistic person who finds eye contact very difficult. So if this was in person, I may not be doing much better. So yeah, a beautiful, beautiful Autumn Spice, which, you know, also is very, you know, it's very golden. So I imagine it would look great in some Christmas patterns as well. Then the day after that, there was A Week's Dye Works. So then I thought, oh, Mum, you did manage to not put the same ones all the days in a row, same brand, to go brand to brand. So that was a nice surprise. This colour is called Williamsburg. And it's like a purpley brown, maybe. I don't know if that's the way I describe it. No, that's certainly what it says to me. But it's quite a rich colour, like a mulberry, maybe. The next day after that, it was a classic Colourworks called, I'm just referring to my list each time, by the way. That's what I'm looking over in a different direction for. It's called Poblano Pepper. And it's like a, I mean, I'm not sure what the pepper, this has been named after, looks like, I've never seen it in person, that pepper. But to me, it's like it's reminiscent to me of like the type of greeny blue grey that we see in Australia in eucalyptus leaves. And like the backside of some eucalyptus leaves. And yeah, that's a very calming colour to me. I wonder if doing this actually helps you. I'm going to have to figure it out. Forgive me. Yeah, another stranded cotton from Classic Colourworks. What next? I'm aware that this video is turning into quite a long one, which is surprising me. I thought I'd have to apologise for a short video the first time. But I might be the Aussie Noel Stitches. Now, look, I'm not going to associate myself with Noel without his consent, but like one of the things he's known for is his fantastically long videos. Something that, you know, I feel excited when he posts a video because it makes me feel like, oh, I'll be able to get a good amount of stitching done in his company. And so yeah, if I could aspire to give anyone such an amazing length of stitching companionship in the style of Noah, yeah, I certainly like long videos. I hope you do. Feel free to click through to the next one if I'm boring you. And all of this is obviously assuming that I have anyone viewing this, which if there's anyone beyond my mum that watches this, and I will be surprised and delighted. But anyway, so we're up to now day 10. This was day 10. Now this is a brand I'd never heard of, but I believe it's an American, potentially California, if my memory serves me right, Threadworks, stranded cotton. I'm filming this at night time and I've got some sort of LED lights above me in my kitchen, so everything's blowing out a little bit, but it is quite a yellowy cream colour. It's 20 yards. I don't do very well at conversions or numbers in my head in general, but we don't do yards in Australia. Not sure how many meters that would translate to, but anyway, it's a hand over dyed cotton, and I was really delighted to discover a new brand, and I thought, well, that's one of the great things about this. Day number 11, same brand, Threadworks, but this one's more variegated, and it's still a cotton, so it goes from like a bluey mauve to a sky blue. But yes, it is a beautiful colour. And actually one of my friends on Facebook, who's one of my second cousins, who through posting these, so hi Carolyn, by posting these daily advents to Facebook and Instagram, I've actually discovered someone in my very extended family who's into stitching as well, and we had a fantastic conversation by Facebook Messenger, in which she showed me a lot of her stitching that she's done over the years, and she actually has a special hard copy photo album that she keeps photos of all the things she's stitched in, which is a fantastic idea. But yeah, it was delightful to find that someone in my family, Carolyn, is an avid stitcher. So yeah, I think that's another thing that inspired me to start trying to broaden my community by contributing to Flosstube, is hopefully I'll find more and more friends to share my passion for cross stitch with. Anyway, I digress. Then day 12 was a very exciting day, and Carolyn was actually very excited about it too, because it was her birthday, and I'm going to Carolyn, I'm not sure if you're watching this, but I'm going to send her a strand of this floss because it was her birthday, and she's, as she's put it, she's sentimental, but I also think it's a wonderful idea for her to stitch a bit of this into something. But this is my first ever silk, and look, I have generally avoided silk thus far because it's more expensive than cotton. One of the things I like about cross stitch, or initially liked about cross stitch, is that it seemed to be more of an accessible craft financially than say knitting, because knitting yarn costs quite a lot of money, and floss seemed to be comparatively very cost effective. But then I discovered how much framing was going to cost me for cross stitch, and I thought, no, I actually haven't found a cheaper hobby. I do plan to learn how to frame things myself, and I know there's a lot of fantastic tutorials out there. I particularly have enjoyed watching Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch, her tutorials about how to pin and frame your own design, your own cross stitch. But I haven't done that yet, and yeah, framing is expensive, and so it should be. Like, it's a fantastic service. The things I have got framed by my local framers have been absolutely stunning and worth every cent. But it's not something I can afford all the time. The other thing that I soon discovered about cross stitch not being as cheap as I thought it would be is that there's silk floss. And from what I've understood about silk floss is it has this fantastic luster and very saturated colour. And, you know, one of the main things I love about cross stitch, other than the rhythmic, repetitive motion of the stitching, is the colour. It's like just an orgasm for my eyes, if I can put it in that way. Hopefully it doesn't offend anyone, but that's what comes to mind, right, when I see colours. And so to think of like the luster and the saturated colour of silk, I knew I'd become obsessed, and I knew that it would cost me a lot of money. So I am someone who really enjoys building my stash and, you know, having quite a lot of cross stitch supplies on hand so that I can stitch something that I feel like at the time. And I'm a collector in general. I like stuff. I'm a maximalist. Sometimes I'm not very proud of that because, you know, I obviously think that we've got to minimize waste and we've got to reuse and recycle things. But yeah, I do. It's not just new things I like to collect. I like to collect antiques, and I just like keeping things that people, like notes that people have given me and things like that. I love books, and anyway, so collecting things is a separate hobby in and of itself, and collecting cross-stitch supplies has almost become a separate hobby for me, as I know it has for many Flosstubers, in addition to stitching. And I was worried that if I got silk that I would start doing that. You know, I did ask Carolyn to put a variety of fibres in my advent calendar, and I did say, please, I would like to try some silk. So I knew I was probably opening Pandora's box for myself in doing this. But, you know, so be it. Anyway, this is my first ever silk. Classic Colourworks Belle Soie. This colour is called Limestone. It's 12-stranded spun silk, 5 yards of it, and it's hand-dyed. And it's a very sort of beautiful olive green. I wish I could show you it in the way that I can see it. Maybe my next obsession will be getting the technical supplies and kit to be able to do that for you. But we'll see how we go. One video at a time. I tend to get very ambitious. But it's just, to me, it looks like the green version of spun gold. And it's just beautiful and it feels amazing. I just want to be like a cat with it. So that was my first silk. Then the silk continued and I only got more beautiful with this excuse me, amazing colour called Cotton Candy. And it is a very pale ballet slipper sort of pink. Belle Soie Classic Colourworks. Then up to day 14. And I think Mum got better at mixing through the things. I think there's been less of a order. So we went back to Threadworks with this gorgeous sort of peacock green. It's reading more teal in the video to you, but back to cotton. To me, it's like an emerald green, peacock feather green. So a gorgeous colour to have. And then we went back to the Belle Soie on day 15 with this gorgeous, gorgeous, vibrant, you know, it's deeper than sky blue. It's very gemstone sort of blue, not as deep as a sapphire, but is it azure? Azure blue, maybe, would be the colour. I like to think of, for someone who really loves using the correct word for the correct application, I use language very literally and specifically, which is, I think, an autistic trait in me, but it's also something that makes me me someone who's very good at putting forward a nuanced argument, and it's something that I'm finding to be a superpower in relation to my PhD. But it means that right now I'm trying to search in my brain for the perfect shade descriptor. This is called Bleu Clair. So yeah, love it. And it is a bit variegated. It's got this more sky blue and then the deeper colour as well. So, you know, I'm now silk obsessed. I haven't started building my stash of silk beyond this advent calendar yet because, you know, it's Christmas time and I'm trying to keep a cap on my spending. But I'm sure I'll be investing in some more silk soon. And this one's called Fufu Flamingo. This was day 16, another classic Colourworks Belsoir silk. And yeah, that is that very sort of peachy pink flamingo colour. And it's just gorgeous. Then, you know, the thing that all floss obsessed people dream of happened on day 17. Now, like many of us, if not all of us, I am a big fan of Brenda and the Serial Starter, Brenda and Laura, who are Brenda and the Serial Starter on Flosstube. And they talk about stitching in, always having a red sampler on the go as one of their rules. And they've talked about red silk. And, you know, I'm not sure if I've remembered this correctly, but I do distinctly remember them mentioning a shade called Schoolhouse Red. And I'm not sure if this brand is the only brand that has a Schoolhouse Red, but I've heard many other Flosstubers talking about Gloriana silk in general. So I think there's a good chance that Brenda and the Serial Starter, Brenda and Laura, have talked about Gloriana Schoolhouse Red as being one of their favourite flosses. I'm not 100% on that, but yeah, it's ringing a bell. And when I saw that A, it was Gloriana silk, and B, that it was Schoolhouse Red, like red silk, how could you go wrong? So I think day 17 is probably the front runner for my favourite day. Now it's reading a little bit sort of less red than it is. It's probably closer to my lipstick than the camera is telling you. But it is the most beautiful colour, and I absolutely can't wait to find a red sampler to stitch with it so that I can be in compliance with Brenda and Laura's rules. I like complying with rules. Day 18 was this fantastic etoile by DMC. I've never stitched with DMC etoile, so it's probably not going to show up very well on camera, but it's cotton with some sparkles. And actually, I'm not sure if how much cotton it is or how much synthetic it is or whether it's all synthetic. I can't quite read it on the packet, but yeah. But certainly it's not all natural if it's got some glitter in it, but I will be looking forward to finding something to stitch that with, and I thought it was very festive in this gold shade. It's shade C725. Okay, getting there, well, getting up to date, and then hopefully next time I'll be able to show you days 21 to 24 inclusive, because yeah, it's only day 20 right now and I'm not skipping ahead. I'm loving opening one a day. Then another thing that I've been dreaming of happened to me. You know, I've been seeing people do their whole parts of their floss tubes and showing me their beautiful soie d'Alger, and I hope that's the correct way to pronounce it, silks and these tiny little beautiful bundles. And then in my advent, there was some soie d'Alger. This is a beautiful blue colour. It is number 5383. And to think that it's French silk, just like, I mean, I'm probably a bit of a francophile. And, you know, have that association of things coming from France, having that luxury. But I just love how teeny tiny the bundle is. This colour I also, like it's a grey blue, and to me it's just a very calming colour. Sort of, it's not as greeny grey as like the back of a gum leaf is, but I somehow still associate this with sort of Australian sort of eucalyptusy sort of associated colours. I'm very excited to stitch with this. And then day 20 today, red, which has got to be one of my favourite colours, still soie d'Alger, a beautiful deep shade of silk. This is number 4624. And I suppose for comparison, I can show you next to this Gloriana. So it's probably, the Gloriana's probably got more orange in it. I need to get a board or something to show things on for you. Apologies. As I said, I will improve. But now I've got all these different reds to play with, and as we can see, I love playing with reds. So yeah, that's my Advent so far. I'm looking forward to seeing what's in the last 4 days. I'm sure I will miss having it once it's done. But yeah, I've just loved being excited about Christmas through my favourite hobby. And as I said, Christmas being a difficult time for me in the past. I did want to mention this at the start actually when I was explaining about the discovery that I had this year that I'm an autistic person. I will link in the description below. I will link in the description below a video that my psychologist sent to me when we were first exploring whether I would want to be assessed for autism. And there's a psychologist called Dr. Tony Attwood, and a lot of his research has been around how autism presents differently in women than in men, and in girls than in boys. So yeah, when I was growing up as a kid, it wasn't really thought of that girls could have autism. But that seems to be like it is with a lot of research, that women are under-researched as compared to men, as are, I suppose the most researched area are cis white men. So there are a lot of demographics that are under-researched, but yeah, women being one of them. And yeah, so women tend to present differently or have different ways of it's a different diagnostic process for women. There are different signs that someone has autism as a woman than a man, and so yeah, it was sort of news to me that a lot of the things I do were consistent with an autism diagnosis. And Dr. Tony Attwood, this being one of his research areas, I found to be a really good explainer to me when I was new to this idea. So I will link that below because I found that useful. And it just might be something that's of interest to you. It may not be applicable to you or anyone you know, but I'm someone that likes learning new things regardless of whether I have a personal connection to it or not. So maybe you'll enjoy that as well. But yeah, women and girls tend to do this thing called masking, where we're able to hide our obviously autistic traits, and by observing what others do and copy and mimicking them. And so that's how I didn't know myself that I was autistic for most of, up until I'm 32 years old. So yeah, I will link that information below for anyone interested. And I was supposed to mention that earlier, but best laid plans and all of that. So on to plans. I am going to start a stitching journal for 2022, and I'll show you the physical journal that I've selected for that next time. I'll just write that down for myself because I've not brought it with me in this stack of stuff I've got around me this time. But I've been thinking about, this concept of new year, new start. I certainly have enough projects already in progress that I don't actually need to start something new, but I enjoy starting something new. And so I'm going to give myself the treat of starting something new that I've already got the supplies for, or as we say, kitted up already. And I haven't really decided yet. So I'm sure not enough people are really going to watch this to help me decide before New Year's Eve when I will start stitching this, or the 1st of Jan. But I'm hoping that my New Year's Eve plans will involve me sitting down and doing some stitching. But yeah, if you come across this before then, please comment below and let me know what you think I should stitch. But yeah, I'm sort of tossing up these options, so I thought I'd share that with you. One of them is, there's a set of pin cushions designed by Jacob at Modern Folk Embroidery, and they're the Japanese symbols for the 4 seasons. And yeah, they, as I said, they are designed as pin cushions. But I've been collecting some Japanese kokeshi dolls. And I thought it would be great to stitch these instead of pin cushions, but all 4 of them in one block, one square, to hang above my kokeshi dolls. So I'll show you the pattern. If it's going to let me. Bear with me. My voice is getting hoarse, man. I've been talking for ages. So as I said, Jacob at Modern Folk Embroidery, and here are the 4 seasons in the Japanese kanji script, and I just think that is absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to stitch it in a DMC red and a DMC black, so black 310. And I can't remember what shade I was going to stitch in the red. I think I'll do the sort of outline in black, and then the symbol, and then maybe some of the interior sort of bits in red, and then the symbol in the middle in black again. I haven't quite decided which bits I will stitch in which, but I will experiment with that. But anyway, that's a contender for me to start as my new year, new start. And I'm keen to do that because it would be on my wall behind a display that I've already got of my Japanese dolls. My mother bought me a set of 5 of them for my birthday, antique ones. And then I already had 2 that I picked up when I was in Japan. And I have an affinity with Japan because I went there on school exchange as a teenager for 5 months. And so, yeah, I love Japanese culture and learning about it. And I speak Japanese. I did Japanese up until the end of my schooling. So here we call it VCE, year 12. And yeah, so anyway, that's why I am attracted to that pattern. Another option is Otoño. Sorry, I don't speak Italian. By Satsuma Street. That's one that I'm sure a lot of people have seen. But yeah, so I'm very interested in the idea of seasonal stitching. I do have all 4 seasonal patterns by Satsuma Street for each of autumn, summer, winter, and spring. This is the autumn one, clearly, and I'm just really attracted to those warm, rich orange tones. So that's another contender for what I might do as my new year, new start. And the third option is, you know, something that I keep telling, like I saw it, I fell in love with it. It's a bit different because it's stitched in tapestry wool, but it is still stitched as a cross stitch. It is absolutely huge. And I'm intimidated by it. And so I keep putting it off. But, you know, that sort of culture around New Year's resolutions and stuff, you know, why shouldn't I start the squid? It's a squid, by the way, spoiler, on the first day or as a New Year's resolution. So I'm attracted to that because I've been feeling a bit intimidated by it. So it's by Emily Peacock. And it's the giant squid. And as you can see by the stitch count on the bottom, it is very big. It is it's not needlepoint in that, you know, needlepoint doesn't do the X's that we do in cross stitch. That does like what they call a colonial stitch, or just like a half cross. That's what needlepoint tends to do. But it is in X's, but it's in tapestry wool. And I just think that will look so cool on my wall. I just think squids are beautiful. And I love the colours, and I like that it's got a bit of a retro stylistic vibe. So yeah, that's another contender for New Year, New Start for me. So watch the next video for what I choose. One final option for my New Year, New Start. In accordance with my love for Barbara Anna, I got one of the kits from Nithya Moscow, all the way from Russia. Barbara Anna does exclusive kits with them, and they come in presented in these beautiful tubes with the fabric and the floss that you need. I won't unbox it now because I've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes, but do look it up on Instagram. But one of them, this is basically the pattern. So there's a moths one, and I like the irony of that because, you know, I love insects. I find them absolutely fascinating and beautiful, but I don't really like finding moths in my home because I have a lot of textiles that I'm really attached to, and I wouldn't want moths near my needlework. So I find it very funny and humorous and ironic that I would be stitching a sampler of moths. Plus they're beautiful, and I love the colour palette that Barbara Anna has chosen. And then the other one in this kit is mushrooms. I have several patterns involving mushrooms that I've collected because I think, once again, that they're absolutely beautiful. But I thought, yeah, that's another contender. So I've got quite a few options there for what I might like to stitch for my new year, new start. And as I say, find out next time as to what I chose. So now on to haul. Obviously, because this is my first Flosstube, next time I'll be able to show you what I've purchased in between this video and the next. But sort of how long is a piece of string in terms of the things that I have bought. I could end up showing you my whole stash because this is my first video. But I will just show you some things that I've bought recently, but I can't remember sort of over what period of time I've actually collected these things. One thing I can't show you but I want to share about is the Fabric of the Month club that Fox and Rabbit have launched. So I knew I was getting quite obsessed with cross stitch when I set my timer to an alarm to sign up when they opened it, and it sold out in less than a minute. I know there's a wait list, and they are intending to provide larger numbers in the second intake. But yeah, I've signed up for the 32 count neutral colours fabric of the month. You could choose a option from 32, 36 or 40 count linen. You could choose neutral or colourful or a surprise me option in which they could give you either. So I went for neutral 32 count linen. I've never stitched on linen before, so this is a significant investment in me stretching myself and extending myself and trying to encourage myself to improve or try new things with my stitching. Obviously there's no problem stitching on Aida. I love stitching on Aida. But yeah, I would like to try something new, and I do love the look of linen, especially hand-dyed linen, and then the idea of supporting an Australian business and having beautiful luxury hand-dyed linens really attracted me. So I wanted to sign up for that. I think in the second intake, which they're saying they will do after March, there will be an Aida option. So I was tempted to wait for that, but then I thought, I'll try the 32 and see how I go with that. And then, just try something new. The other thing I got this month was, and I suppose I'm now saying it's this month, but yeah, this I know I got this month because it's a monthly subscription that I have with a company called The Strawberry Thief, who are a distributor in Australia. I think they're located in Western Australia, of Liberty of London fabrics. And I've been getting into quilting and doing English paper piecing, and I've been doing a hexagon quilt with their fabrics. And then there's also a Liberty Love Around the World sell, stitch along for an English paper pieced around the world pattern quilt at the moment. So I'm building my stash to be able to do those. So I get the fat 16th, so quite small amounts fabric of the month, in which you get 10 fat 16ths of fabric. I will open up the fabric package, skip ahead a little bit if you don't like the noise. So the first one is called Betsy 19A. So Betsy's one of the staple Liberty of London fabrics, but they're doing bespoke or new colorways of it all the time. So this one's 19A. This one's called Revival A. Beautiful color. This one's called Love Pop A. So it's the Liberty Tana Lawn, I should say. This one's called Capel Raspberry, and that's another one of those that's always in the standard range, but lots of new colours come out all the time. Then this I absolutely love. It's called My Little Star Y, and I know it was part of this year's Christmas edition fabrics. I just love that it's got hot pink and red. I love that colour combination. And then Luna Bell A. No one does florals better than Liberty, in my opinion. Not that I'm an extensive fabric connoisseur, but yeah, I think it's an extension of how much I love colour, that I love collecting fabric. And this too, I have the sensory experience of how silken this cotton is. Like, it is such a fine weave that it feels a bit like silk. This is called Somerset Viola B. Beautiful violas or violas. And this one is called Matilda May A. And then finally, excuse the cough, I think this is what happens when you talk too much. Sunshine Meadow C. Really cool retro vibe with that one. I love this daffodil. It's sort of a bit Andy Warhol-esque, like with the different colours than you would expect. That's a very poor description, but maybe you'll catch my drift, pick up what I'm putting down. So yeah, that was part of my haul. Something else that was part of my haul was I bought 2 embroidery kits from Kiriki Press. Hopefully that pronunciation's right. Here you go. I only have one of them to show, the one that I started. My intention was to make these for my children for Christmas, so a panda for one child and a llama for the other, because they said they didn't take very much time, but I'd never tried embroidery before. I think the description on the package is probably accurate for people who are a bit more experienced than me, but yeah, I've left it too late, so these will probably be Christmas birthday presents for next year now. But anyway, so here's the name of the brand, Kiriki Embroidery. They come in these cute little boxes. I think it's a Canadian business. This is what I will aim to be making. It's a little plushie toy with hand-done embroidery. And there's a variety of ones that you can choose from. The llama one that I will be doing, is it on this? It is so blurry. I'm so sorry. The llama is on there, but I don't know how well you can see it. Anyway, check out their website. But yeah, I made a start on this. So I probably should have showed you that in works in progress, but this is when you're getting it. So I did, an evening of embroidery, and I just did the satin stitch on the bamboo. And I'm a complete beginner to embroidery. My gran is a beautiful embroiderer. She hasn't been able to do some for a long time because of her arthritis. But I would like to try and film a video with my gran, because she's the reason I'm into crafting, or even had the idea of giving any type of crafting a go. Because when I was a child, she used to, doing sewing with me. She taught me how to knit. And I had all these beautiful examples of her beautiful hand-stitched items. She made many a formal dress and other beautiful things for me. A Christmas dress every single year, and you're probably thinking, what a selfish person to not like Christmas when you have someone making you a Christmas dress every year of your childhood. I loved the dresses. Loved them. That was something I did love about Christmas. So yeah, I would love to introduce you to my gran. So we'll see if I can talk her into it. I'm sure it won't take much talking her into it, because she loves supporting me. I think, she might be a bit hesitant about putting something on the internet, but I think when it comes down to it, she loves doing nice things for me. So, and she's a very supportive person. Something else was the trim I got from Mojo Stitches, which I showed you in relation to how I'm going to finish off those Barbara Anna Christmas hair and Santa's flight charts. Then I also, from Mojo Stitches, picked up one of her designs. Sorry for the glare on that, but I think you can see it fairly well. These are called the Christmas Bells Pin Keep by Mojo Stitches. Sorry. She's an Australian designer who I just love. I've got some of her other designs that are also about Australia, flora and fauna. So she's got Bushland Quaker 1 and 2. Bushland Quaker 1 are the Australian flowers, and then Bushland Quaker 2 Australian birds. I might have got that the wrong way around, but yeah. And I've started the one with the flowers, so maybe I'll show you that in a future video, because I very much want to get back to that. And she's designed them with cottage garden threads, so Australian business, supporting Australian business, what's not to love. So yeah, I got that chart when I picked up that recycled sari silk. And then I caved and bought something I've been wanting for a long time, which when I saw Victoria from Neat and Knot by the Sea start it, I just thought, no, I have to get it. So I contacted the Cruel Gobelin cruel as in Crewel, like the embroidery. And they had this from the Scarlet Letter in stock. It's not a cheap chart. But I love that sort of, I think Jacobean sort of embroidery spot sampler idea where, you know, they didn't really know very accurately what things looked like and everything's out of proportion. And I love that in this pattern there is, there's some very interesting looking fish. I believe somewhere in here there's caterpillars. I thought I saw a snail somewhere. So I'm going to have to edit that together because my camera just decided, no, I'm going to stop filming you now. We're going to cut you off. Everyone's fallen asleep. But yeah, the video is still there. But anyway, I was just raving about this wonderful sampler by the Scarlet Letter called a peacock, a unicorn, and a badger. And here's some close-ups at the back. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to doing that at some point. And then because I was obsessed with my Noel sampler, another piece of haul I got by Satsuma Street is her Piece on Earth kit where you can make a banner. And it's because I was attracted to the lettering in the Noel sampler and it's similar lettering. I won't take this out of the plastic. Hopefully that's not too annoying. So I've got all the fixings in there, the perforated paper, the DMC and the ribbon to make this Piece on Earth sampler. And of course it's not going to be done for this Christmas, but it'll be something that I'll add to my Christmas decorations. So yeah, here are the threads and the beautiful ribbon that came with that. So that's probably enough of haul. Oh, sorry, one more thing. So I absolutely love Yumiko Higuchi embroidery. As I said, you know, I'm a very new embroiderer. I've only just done that satin stitch on that panda. But I'm very inspired. I love collecting books as a separate thing and craft books particularly, but I would like to give a go some of Yumiko Higuchi's patterns. And yeah, this is her embroidered animals book. I do have her botanical ones as well, but I thought my children would love it if I put some of these, the animals in this book, here's the back cover, on some things for them as well. And I also love the animals too. Okay, so I wanted to do a bit of a Save the Stitches segment in this video as well. And I'm not sure who had the idea first, but two people who have inspired me to have a Save the Stitches segment, Amanda May at Ardith Designs and Kathleen at Stitchuation Normal. And so they basically find a piece of needlework that's out in the world at what we call an op shop here, thrift store in the US, or an antique place, or, you know, maybe from a family member or something like that, and yeah, and then save it. So, or give it a new home or give it a new life. So I was on a holiday in regional Victoria. I went through a place called Wonthaggi, which used to have a state coal mine in it. So I had a bit of an interest in going through there because of the content of my PhD, which, as I said, I'm studying coal. But anyway, they had an antique store there, and they had a fantastic variety of needlework, in addition to other fantastic things as well. There was a antique used fire extinguisher which had been polished back to the copper underneath, which was very, very tempting. There were some spools, which my partner's bought me one, but I said give it to me at Christmas to make it easier so that he doesn't have to think of what else to get me. But he's very good at buying me gifts, and I'll show you that in a moment. But anyway, yeah. And then I saw all these doilies, and I thought, oh my goodness, I just want to buy every single doily. But then I thought, okay, so that I don't buy every single doily, I need a new rule for myself. And the rule is if there's, you know, for me, and I know other people have different ideas of what, you know, they would do, but for me, to prevent myself from hoarding a house full of doilies, I've decided I will pick up any doilies that don't have stains. And I suppose if something, I could be flexible about that. If it's something that I could, you know, it's the stains in an area where I could still make use of part of it or repurpose it in some way. But anyway, these ones were pristine and they were like $1 for 2 of them. So I got 2 matching ones. And I love that someone's done that. I think this is called tatting, maybe, when it's like very, very like micro crochet, but it's like it makes the lace. And someone's done a beautiful hem stitch on the bottom. So it's like a drawn hem stitch, maybe that's what you call, where you make these sort of holes in the fabric to make a hem. I would love to learn how to do that. I know Catherine's done it on Neat and Not by the Sea. I know Jacob at Modern Folk Embroidery has done a lot of this. I'll have to see if anyone's got a tutorial out there. But anyway, absolutely gorgeous. A mixture of cross stitch and embroidery. So because there's X's, but then there's also these beautiful, delicate little flowers. So as I said, I got 2 of them, and I think they're just gorgeous. And then the other doily I found was this one. I can't remember how much it cost, but it was, you know, $3 or something, with these gorgeous carnations and pansies. So that's my Save the Stitches segment. Now, as I said, Amanda May at Ardith Design is one of my favourite Flosstubers, and yeah, you know, I think a lot of the Flosstubes I've watched, you know, if I've been feeling down or going through a hard time, I've felt that watching Flosstube and retreating into the joy that I have and finding joy again through stitching has been something that's really carried me through. And Amanda May's sort of tagline or line that she says every time in her Flosstube is that you matter and your stitching matters. And, you know, when I first started watching Flosstubes and before I'd really acknowledged in myself what they mean to me, you know, that would have sounded quite saccharine to me, or just like a bit of an airy-fairy, or, you know, a phrase that was a nice thing to say but didn't have meaning. But, you know, there have been times where hearing that you matter and your stitching matters has been the thing that has helped me through that day and become like a mantra in my head, and has meant more to me than I could describe. And, you know, so I wanted to say a blanket or general sort of thank you to people like Amanda May and other Flosstubers who say things that might be the only compliment that that person hears that day, or might be the compliment that they needed on a day where they were having you know, facing some obstacles or feeling burnt out or overwhelmed. I know it's not a personal one, you know, Amanda May doesn't know me personally, I don't know Amanda May personally, but it still meant something to me to hear that I mattered and that my hobby matters and something that I take such joy in matters. And, you know, her stitching brings such joy to me. So, you know, retreating back into logic here for a second, it makes sense that my stitching could mean something to someone else and to me, or someone beyond me. So, you know, and, you know, another Flosstuber who comes to mind that is Annie, the Joy-Filled Stitcher, who she has a tradition of doing hugs. And at first I was, you know, a bit confronted by that idea. You know, she's asking us all to have virtual hugs and like us all to hug ourselves, and she's hugging the screen and then asking you to hug yourself. And it's something that she started in the pandemic, that, you know, some people weren't around people that could give them a hug or didn't have access to hugs in that time. And, you know, I first started being quite incredulous about, oh yeah, and sitting there with my arms crossed thinking that, you know, that didn't mean anything to me. But as time's gone on, you know, some days I've needed that virtual hug, and that there's someone in the world thinking about people who didn't have a hug. And, you know, I'm very fortunate, I've got 2 very cuddly children. But just the general notion of spreading hugs, is another reason that I love the Flosstube community, because it's sort of based on that premise of kindness and spreading joy, like the Joy-Filled Stitcher. But anyway, back to Amanda May at Ardith Design. I think I realised that I was really into cross-stitching, you know, multiple times, but it was an affirmation of that when it was my birthday and my partner gave me a book called Cross Stitch for Feminists. and it's by Stephanie Rohr, R-O-H-R. Apologies if I've mispronounced that. So not only does he acknowledge and celebrate that I'm a feminist, which I don't need him to acknowledge or celebrate that I'm a feminist, but it's bloody nice, excuse my language, and like to think that there's an intersection of feminism and cross stitch is like two of my favourite things in a book. But then he wrote in the front and borrowed and took some inspiration from Amanda May. Dear Ella, your stitching matters. And, you know, that meant that he'd been listening to me rave about Amanda May and, you know, how much hearing that my stitching matters and that I matter means. So anyway, that's a little bit of a sharing. I also thought, while I'm mentioning the birthday gifts that my partner gave me, he also gave me the full range of DMC colour card. And I just get joy out of just looking at this, but it's also been very useful. So he's a keeper, I've decided. But also, yay, colour card. So yeah, that's my, I think I was talking about haul, and then I went into Save the Stitches, and that's how then I shared with you about Amanda May. Good, I've not got myself too lost. I just wanted to share a funny story about, to bookend my discussion today with the general theme of my first video, which is I love stitching. So I started talking about it at the start. I want to tell you a story in that vein to end off today's video. So my youngest child was doing kinder at a day-long daycare, and luckily they're starting prep, or their first year of schooling next year. So both my children will be going to the same place, and I don't have to take them to different places. Can't wait. But yeah, they were going to daycare, and there was part of, you know, a few days there, you know, after we'd had a few lockdowns, and, you know, it was an intimidating thing to go back to daycare, but also to have to not wear pajamas every day, and, like, you know, it's hard peopling out in the world, you know. And so my child went through a stage of really saying, you know, I don't want to go. And then I explained that, well, it's really important that you go because you've got friends there and you enjoy it, and it's an opportunity for you to learn. But also, you know, it helps mummy for you to be at daycare so that mummy can do her work during the day. You know, by work, I'm meaning, you know, my PhD thesis, okay? But, and so I thought that was quite a good conversation to have. But then, you know, a couple of days later, my child got up and they said, it's okay, Mum, I'll go to daycare today because I know you've got lots of work to do. You've got lots of cross-stitching to do. And I thought, oh my goodness, they think that the work that I do when they're at daycare is cross-stitching. What I love about that is that there's no value judgment attached to that from my child, and, you know, why shouldn't my work be cross-stitching? And I love that about them and the way that their brain was working. But yeah, I wish I could cross-stitch all day, but no, PhD thesis, and which I also love doing. But yeah, I just thought that would exemplify to you how much I love cross-stitch and how much my children know I love cross-stitch. So thank you for sharing in my love of cross-stitch with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. And I will see you next time, so I can continue to share my joy with you. As I said, I'm hoping to tempt my gran into joining me for a video so I can show you the inspiration that I had that has led me to pick up a needle and thread. But for those of you who celebrate this holiday season, I hope you have a Merry Christmas. Whether you celebrate or not, I hope all of you find some time to spend with loved ones, some time for yourself, some time to stitch, some time to learn something new. Thank you so much for watching my video. I'll see you next time.